The authors of the op-ed go on to write, quote, the potential for a total breakdown of the chain of command along partisan lines from the top of the chain to the squad level is significant should another insurrection occur.
All right. We've got a new op-ed from 3 retired generals saying, watch out, there might be a coup coming inside the United States, inside the U.S. military. It is incredible. It is a very stark and clear warning. You're not getting it. There are people inside the military that would be mutineers and not listen to the legitimate president of the United States.
The oath to the Constitution and the notion that this is not what the armed forces should ever do, is to interfere in election, that held. I think your concern, though, is that could be eroded with sustained attempts by the ex-president and his sort of facilitators to eat into that belief, at least among folks that are in the armed forces, which of course is 1.5 million people or whatever.
Indeed, there is an active movement right now on the part of the GOP to infect the armed forces of the United States with doubt that the election process is just not what we expect it to be, to insert doubt that we are conducting fair and elegantly delivered elections.
So it's Paul Eaton, a retired U.S. Army Major General, Antonio Taguba, Army Major General, Stephen M. Anderson, a retired Brigadier General. So they're all retired. They're all very high-level generals in the United States military. And I'm going to read at length some of their warnings. In the beginning, they summarized by saying, in short, we are chilled to our bones at the thought of a coup succeeding next time. So they think it's very real and that we need to take steps to prevent it. So they give one specific example, which is definitely chilling. They say recently, and perhaps more worrying, Brigadier General Thomas Mancino, the commanding general of the Oklahoma National Guard, refused an order from President Biden mandating that all National Guard members be vaccinated against the coronavirus. So there we have it already. So it is not disputable whether you have to listen to the commander-in-chief. That's why he's the commander-in-chief. That's the president of the United States of America. That is not in dispute. So you don't get to say, hey, you know what? But I didn't like his order. I want to listen to someone else. The National Guard is national. But that Brigadier General now in kind of a mutiny situation saying, no, I'm going to listen to the Republican governor of Oklahoma instead. Which really has almost nothing to do with the National Guard. The National Guard are federal troops. There is no question about it. But now, to the point of the 3 generals that wrote this op-ed, now there is a question as to whether they will follow orders or they will start to do break-off factions of the military. This is of the U.S. military. This is incredibly dangerous. The creeping fascism is here. And to the point that the generals are making, we're kind of whistling past the graveyard here, thinking, yeah, they're not listening to orders anymore in the military, and they might do factions and maybe a coup. But, what are we getting alarmed about? They're like, yes, you should be alarmed, really, really alarmed, as they are. So they continue. The potential for a total breakdown of the chain of command along partisan lines from the top of the chain to squad level is significant should another insurrection occur. The idea of rogue units organizing among themselves to support the rightful commander-in-chief cannot be dismissed. So Trump started this by saying, I didn't lose, even though the states clearly said, including the red states like Georgia, Arizona, etc., saying, no, he did lose. Republican officials in those states. And then they did audit after audit. And then they lost 60 court cases. He definitely lost. And in fact, in those 60 court cases, he has never presented any evidence that has gotten any traction at all completely not credible, including by Trump-appointed judges saying you have not presented any evidence. But nonetheless, there are members of the military who are now beginning to go rogue and saying, well, I wanted him to win. So, and he says he's the rightful president. So maybe I'll start listening to him instead. Well, that's how you get to civil war, when there are 2 branches of the United States military and they don't agree. And what happens when they point guns at one another? The generals are right. Impending disaster. There's iceberg right in front of the Pentagon.
We're not going to take it anymore. I see a civil war coming. I do. I see civil war coming.
I can tell you right now, if they steal the election, all bets are off. How about civil war? Let's go for it.
Noam Chomsky has a dire warning for the United States as the Republican Party slides further right into authoritarianism.
One of the lessons we should learn from 2021 is what is happening to the most powerful, wealthy state in world history. It's going off, literally going off the precipice. There was recently a study of attitudes of Republican voters on many issues, comparative study, comparing them with European parties. The results are pretty grim. They rank with parties like Alternative für Deutschland, the right-wing neo-fascist parties. It is one of the two major parties in the United States, the party that is very likely to take power next year and in 2024 because of various manipulations and shenanigans that they're carrying out. They won't win the vote, but they'll probably win the election.
In the study that Chomsky cited, the views of the current Republican Party were in alignment with very right-wing authoritarian foreign governments. Chomsky mentioned that the Republican Party would likely return to power in 2022 and 2024, but not necessarily because they had the votes. In 2021, 34 laws were passed restricting access to voting, while 262 bills were introduced in 41 states that would have interfered with elections. Texas, where I live, led the charge last year, with an impressive 59 voter-suppressive bills introduced. For comparison, Arizona had the second most, with 20. I always say that Texas is not as red as people think it is, but we're up against a lot.
If you take a look at the attitudes of Republican voters during the 4 Trump years, concern for global warming declined by about 20%. That's 4 years of propaganda. There are ominous signs of worship of a semi-deity. We're both old enough to remember that from somewhere else. Okay.
When you look at various conflicts and uprisings around the world, you tend to find a few common themes in regards to why it all happened in the first place. One of the most common themes that you run into is a minority ruling a majority. This can happen in various different ways, but one of the best ways it can happen is through voter suppression. Voter suppression ensures that the voices of the masses are stifled in one way or another, resulting in a government that simply does not represent the people. In a democracy, that's a huge problem.